Blog Talk Radio.
It's a new thing that's sweeping the land when you don't know which way to go. The answer is Jesus and Elevation Radio.
God bless you. This is Elevation Radio 1, and I'm still your host. God bless you, Pastor Steve, Music Man Turner, and we thank you for taking the journey with us. This is the program that spotlights positive people doing positive work while serving a positive God whose name is Jesus. We thank you. And our subject matter today is ending the Wes Moore controversy. Ending the Wes Moore controversy with my great guests, Daren Mahummad and Kenny Eebron, called the Coalition. This program is dedicated to God. It's also dedicated in memory of my sweet, sweet, and lovely wife, who's gone on to glory, First Lady Leroy Turner, my co-host. Psalms chapter 8, verse 1 says, O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is your name in all the earth, unless your name is Wes Moore. You're running for governor of Maryland. Is it legal to borrow the name to change your identity? Oh my goodness! And so, matter of fact, let's just get into this here, and we really need to know who was the real Wes Moore. Does anyone know the truth? Can fraud be exposed? Oh my goodness! Today we will talk to two distinguished gentlemen, activists in their own right, who have the answers. That's what I believe, and that's Mr. Kenny Eebron and Mr. Daren Mahummad. Hear ye them. All right, so who wants to go first? Who is Kenny Eebron?
All right. Okay, so where the topic is, we're talking about the real Wes Moore. There used to be a game show on TV that saying, will a real person please stand? Seem like we're just doing the rerun of the same game. Will the real Wes Moore please stand? And so here we go again with this game. It's the game that people play, and myself, just really frustrated and tired of the same thing over and over and over again. And to all the listeners that are listening, I just want to pretty much put into your ear and into your mind and your hearts as well. When we're looking at Wes Moore, a person who have taken my nephew's name and made this name for himself, here this person is running for governor who believes the policies of the same policies that we have here in the city of Baltimore. That is okay for children and adults to do sweezy work without even paying taxes. It's all right for folks to do small petty crimes and doesn't pay the price for it. So with these type of policies that our Wes Moore stands behind, these same policies would then become spread out in the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland then will become one big Baltimore with the same issues, and you see then the crime start rising. Start seeing carjacking in different cities and different counties. You start seeing the sweezy kids in different areas. You start seeing when they start abandoning the plastic bags from the markets, the stores that you shop in, and you find yourself paying taxes on paper bags. So you'll see all of this thing playing the role in the state of Maryland. And can we afford it? Can we afford that kind of foolishness around the state of Maryland?
Well, I see. Well, before I get into the executioner, Daren Mahummad, let me say that I saw the power sweeper. I saw that the New York Times had an expose about Wes Moore. He wrote a book called The Other Wes Moore, and he said once he found out about Wes Moore, that had been a part of a robbery or something like this, that he started writing letters to him, and they started communicating and exchanging information. That's where they claimed he visited him in prison. And is his name really Wes Moore? Is it all not true? Let me go to a authenticated expert, Mr. Daren Mahummad. Pleasure to have you, sir.
Well, let me first, yes, sir. God bless you. Let me say thank you, my brother, and thank you to your beautiful and late wife. Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for your program, Elevation One, and thank you for this opportunity to have myself and my big brother, my blood brother, Kenny Eebron, on the show today.
Honor.
To tell the truth. Yes, sir. So the title of your show is Ending the Wes Moore Scandal or Controversy, and being, of course, authentic, being Baltimore raised, Baltimore bred, right? Growing up in the neighborhoods, in the communities of Baltimore, going to the schools in Baltimore from elementary to junior high school to college, to attending, of course, the churches here in Baltimore that we grew up in, right? And then later on, for me, in the Nation of Islam. But we were always taught to tell the truth, and that one thing that was important to us, so two things, but numerous things. But the first thing is the Bible says that a good name is better than gold. So we were always taught at home by my parents, then by my grandmother and other extended family members that we should always honor our mother and father, but honor the family name. If we went outside of our home, we should never bring any shame to the family name. In school, when we went on school trips, we were always told, remember, you're not just representing yourself, but your family, and you're representing, of course, the school and the institution. If we went on trips in the church, likewise, it was the same message that was given to us, right? So here we are now talking about ending this Wes Moore scandal, but controversy, and we didn't start it. It started with a lie. Of course, we're on a Christian program, and Jesus said in the Bible, simply, we shall know the truth, or you shall know the truth, right? And the truth shall set you free. So we just came to tell the truth. We don't have to lie. And as my brother mentioned, of course, we grew up children of the 60s and the 70s, and we would watch a TV show entitled To Tell the Truth. And there was always, of course, at a certain part, after the guest or the host would ask questions to the guest, they would always ask, will the real person, in this case, will the real Wes Moore please stand up? And you would have some that would maybe come close to standing up, but they wouldn't stand up. Because we're talking about those that are standing on truth, standing on the square, standing on righteousness, standing on integrity, standing on character, right? So this is what we're standing on, and fighting for our family's name, fighting for our family's honor, and fighting for the truth regarding this regarding this fraud, which is synthetic fraud, which is the fastest growing crime in America and in the world, which is identity fraud, right?
Yes, sir.
So we're exposing this identity fraud of a character or a caricature by the name of Wes Moore, whose name may be Omari Moore or Watundi Moore or some other Moore, right? So in doing that, what we've always learned from Baltimore, the nitty gritty, right? Just what you taught, that you got to defend your family, defend your mother. As black boys, we were always taught that when we would play the games a dozen, right? You couldn't just talk about my mom and get away with it like that. So here we are now with this book that you have those who were his publishers and handlers that we've been challenging them with the truth, and none of them have stepped up to say, I'm lying, my brother's lying, that the family's lying, that this is not, again, a case of identity fraud, but then to go beyond that, to sell a book out of a tragedy for him to try to use as a triumph, and then to make millions of dollars off the book. Meanwhile, my nephew, who is my flesh and blood of my older sister, Mary Moore, my nephew, John Wesley Moore, is still languishing in prison, serving life in prison, and his family and his children and grandchildren can only see him behind, of course, 5 inches of plexiglass. So there's a lot of questions that Wes Moore has not answered. And how did he gain access to my nephew behind prison bars? Because for you and I and others who have done ministries in the prison, you can't just walk into prison. and go see someone and you're not related to him, you know? So there's a lot of questions on how he got access to my nephew. And then there's more questions about why did he only talk to my nephew and my nephew's mother and one of my other sisters, but he made sure, his handlers made sure, his publishers made sure not to talk to any of the men in the family. So that was clearly methodical in terms of what they did, and again, concocting this idea of using the book to push another agenda, and then through the book are nothing but a bunch of lies that they weave in. It kind of reminds me in the book of Genesis, how the snake started off as a snake. But by the time we get to Revelations, because that snake wasn't stopped, that snake now has become a full-grown, fire-breathing dragon. Is that right?
You are a preacher, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Doctor. We've already got a phone call already. Let's go here to the call, because you have stirred up some stuff here. If you have an opinion, call at 1-914-205-5353. If you're shocked with just the opening credits of this situation, then call in at 1-914-205-5353. Going right to the phone line, and let's see who we have here. Welcome to Elevation Radio 1. How can we help you? Okay, caller.
Hey, can you? I'm here just listening. I'm here just listening.
Okay, well, I'll give you an identity. This is my occasional celebrity co-host, Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr. We welcome you. Go ahead, Dr. Muhammad. Tell me more.
Yes, sir. You speaking to me now?
Tell me more. Yes, I'm speaking to you.
Okay.
Sir.
Well, yeah. Well, being the youngest, when this book was first brought to my attention, it was brought to my attention by, this Baltimore, brother, as you know, right? So-and-so knows so-and-so. So-and-so went to school with this person. They grew up with this person. So the book was first brought to my attention by Donnie Glover, right, who used to have BMoreNews.com. Okay. So Donnie had called me one day. It's probably about 7, 8, if not longer, years ago. And he said, what do you know about this book, Wes Moore? I said, are you talking about my nephew? I said, I told Donnie who my nephew was. I said, I grew up with my nephew. When I was between the ages of 11 to 15, I lived with my older sister, Mary Moore, who sometimes uses the word Wanda. Because, growing up in the black neighborhood, we always got nicknames for one another. You know that, right? That's the tradition in the black community, but it's not germane to just the black community. So my sister lived at 817 Bethune Road. And this caused a little tension between my sister and some of my other sisters, because I had 5 sisters and 3 brothers, right? So it caused a little contention because they felt that she was just trying to get me to move with her to kind of help her out with the boys, which she was, right? Because she knew I was a good young man, a good brother, right?
Okay.
And she was, and she was there for me as a brother, because what I didn't allude to and talk about, which I'm eventually going to come back to, was when my mother died in 1972. I was the youngest of brothers and sisters, and having 5 sisters, my sister stepped in. My beautiful black grandmother moved here from North Carolina, that my mother asked her on her deathbed if anything happened to her to please make sure that her children were not separated. And right before my grandmother came, there were those that was trying to separate us, and they would put us in foster care. So she stopped that by her sacrificing her own in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and moving to Baltimore. Am I telling the truth, big brother?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
Sir. Right. So I live with my sister Mary in Cherry Hill, 817 Bethune Road. And many people watch me grow up in Cherry Hill. And my nephews were there, of course, Tony and Wesley. Richard Antonio Moore, who we call Tony. Wesley Moore, who we call Mook. Another one of them nicknames, called him Mook growing up, right? So I lived with her, knew about the whole culture of Cherry Hill. We always say if you can make it in Cherry Hill, you can make it anywhere. Wasn't no corner store, right. So we knew what it was to go to a bus to get your food. You know what I mean? We knew what it was to go to the bus, school bus that they kind of hooked up some concoctions with generators to keep the food cold. But we made it, is what I'm saying. We took lemons and made lemonade. We took onions and made onion pickles. We took nothing in Cherry Hill and made something out of it, right? It got us through.
Yeah,
it was a struggle, right? But we got us through. So my sister helped me in graduating from junior high school And then eventually I was going to Dunbar, and my sister Mary Moore moved from Cherry Hill, and she moved over on Luzerne Avenue. And then from there, I went to Dunbar. So I went back home to live with my grandmother, who had then moved to 1809 Edmondson Avenue. So I say all that to say that kind of was the time I spent with my nephews. When she would go to work and I came home from school, I was babysitting essentially my nephews, right? Tony and Wesley. It was just the three of us together. So I would watch them as far as their chores, teaching them the things that they needed to learn about being self-disciplined, right, through their childhood. So that was our relationship. I was like a surrogate big brother to them during that time that we were together. So I watched them grow. They watched me grow. I played Little League football. Many people know me growing up at Christmas Addicts playing sports. So my nephews, they would come to the football games, and they watched me to the point that when they became teenagers, they too wanted to play football. My first trophy I got, my sister went to the award program that night. We took a cab there and took a bus home. And I'm on the bus with trophies. I won the MVP for the football league, which was made up about 12 to 16 teams, right? But what she was showing to my nephews was that you can learn by watching my little brother, because we all learn through 4 phases, right? Observation, participation, imitation, and lastly, desperation. So they watch me grow and see my success, knowing that they could do the exact same thing. In the book, Wes Moore, he made sure not to reach out to talk to me, and I'm still alive. He didn't reach out and talk to my brothers. He didn't reach out and talk to any of my other nephews, uncles. Yeah. But in the book, he talks about his father. He talked about his uncles. He talked about his grandfather. But he went out of the way to try to project my family as just women with boys with no men that could give them guidance. And that was nothing could be further from the truth on that regarding, again, the book. So I wanted to just kind of lay that out so that people don't think, because you have people that say, well wait a minute, how's Muhammad related to them? They just know me as Daren Mahummad radio talk show host, Daren Mahummad activist, as if I just appeared in a vacuum. I got a lot of skin in the game, right? I got good credit. I don't need nobody to co-sign for me. But when Donnie Glover told me about the book, I said, clearly this book is a fraud, because the first thing I asked Donnie Glover when he said about Wes Moore, I said, where'd he grow up at? That's the first thing I'm going to ask you. Where'd he grow up? What school did he go to? You know, people ask me, they say, what school? People say, no, I went to Utah Marshburn. So they know I got teachers, I got principals I could name, crossing guards I could name. So there was nobody that could speak for Wes Moore. There was nobody that could vouch for this Wes Moore. You know, not even a crossing guard, not even a janitor, not even a cafeteria worker give you an extra biscuit in school for lunch. You know what I mean? There was nobody to say we know this Wes Moore. You know what I mean? So I told Donnie Glover that should have been a red flag for you right there, that this boy was only using Baltimore to sell this book. And then, you know, I remained silent about it and just sat back and watched. And the reason why I did that, my brother Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., who's the son of Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. of the original Black Panther, tell me, he said, through our years of friendship, he said, Brother Muhammad, you up north, he said, but my family is from the South, from Louisiana. He said, y'all got this new thing in the cities in the north where y'all walk the dogs. We was coming up, when we walked the dogs, we let the dog poop on the grass. We didn't get the poop up. That was fertilizers for the grass, right? But now these new laws, you got to get the pooper scooper, you got to get the green bag, and you got to pick the poop up. Chairman Fred said, I let the poop sit out on the grass. I said, why you let it sit on the grass, Chairman Fred? He said, I want to see what type of flies that the SHIT is going to attract. You know what I mean? Right? So I
family show.
Yeah, family show. Oh, see what type of flies the manure was going to attract.
Got today, good.
Okay. Yes, sir. So I didn't respond immediately and go out and talk about the book. I just sat back to see who else was a part of this conspiracy to push Wes Moore and to thrust Wes Moore on the black community and on those in Baltimore and those in Maryland, when they knew that I was connected and tied through my birth through the real Wes Moore, who sits in prison. So we'll get into, you know, what happened, how he's in prison, why he's in prison, and everything that happened, because Wes Moore didn't endure the pain. And I'm talking about the synthetic fraud Wes Moore. He didn't endure the pain that I had to endure as a child, to not be able to say goodbye to my mother when I'm at home and my mother dies in the hospital, because the laws were that children under a certain age couldn't come to the hospital. So I never got to say goodbye to my mother. He talked about he could say goodbye to his father. But I, as a child, 7 years old, my mother never saw me graduate from elementary school, from high school, from college. And my children have never felt the warmth of their grandmother's hug or kisses on their forehead to affirm them and confirm them. But Wes Moore thought that he could take liberty and talk about my mother's death in a book that he's writing, which is supposed to be about himself and my nephew, Wes Moore. So what does my mother have to do with what my nephew did years later when my nephew was not even born? Tony was born in 1970. Wesley was not born until 1976. So my mother had nothing to do with the botched robbery that they committed in 2000 or 2001.
This is heavy. Listen, so who is this guy? Is his name really Wes Moore?
You want to take that, big bro?
I don't exactly know if it is, but like my brother said, this was a high profile case, and so this was a good chance to just go ahead and run with this, to say, hey, I'm going to write a story about the other Wes Moore. My name is Wes Moore, because it was already a high-profile case. So why not use that name, Wes Moore? And so can he show a birth certificate? Can we see a birth certificate?
That's something. Mm-hmm.
The same question he asked Obama. Where's your birth certificate? You say you're born in the USA. Where's your birth certificate? Can you prove your birth certificate?
He sounds like when you see the commercial where he's been a captain in the military, he's a Rhodes Scholar, Johns Hopkins, and blah blah blah. Right. It almost sounds superficial.
Disney,
it almost sounds
Disney-like.
Disney-like. Superhero.
Make believe. You understand? When you wish upon a star, we can cut right to the chase, right? This is make believe.
Wow.
So they tried to see. He tried to use a tragedy for his triumph, to embellish himself that I'm the good Wes Moore, this is the bad Wes Moore. I'm the good Wes Moore that lived next door to you, that you want your daughter to date, you want your daughter to marry. This is the criminal thug Wes Moore. Because even in the book, he tried to portray my nephews, saying that my one nephew Tony and Wesley would go to Murphy homes. Like these were some kingpin drug dealers, man. First thing, if you know the history of drug dealers in Baltimore City, and I knew some kingpin drug dealers, some Lil Melvin Williams and so many others, right? Kingpin drug dealers, first thing they do, they move up out the hood. They don't stay in the hood. And then they buy themselves a home. They buy their mother a home. They buy vehicles, man. They didn't have any of that. But this is the image that he tried to portray of my nephews, like there were some drug kingpins in the book, is what he tried to portray.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I can tell you some drug kingpins that he was working for that was in the state's attorney's office, that as long as I've been talking about it, from Brother Ed Slim Butler, who I used to host the show with, and Slim Butler used to tell me about people in the state's attorney's office under Kirk Smoke at the time. There was some drug
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute, sir. We need some names here. If you choose to give it, we're on a cutting edge right here, because they could still be there.
Yeah. Well, one of them was Georgia. You familiar with Assistant State's Attorney Georgia Gosley?
No.
She used to be on them shows. People are talking. She'd be talking real loud, square off, right? She's a loudmouth attorney.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I got a letter. From Arnold Mitchell, who had the sensei Arnold Mitchell, who taught karate in Baltimore City for years. He was part of a group that Sheila Dixon was a part of called the Avengers with Riley Hawkins and so many of the other guys, right? Well, Arnold used to date Georgia Gosley. Georgia liked the young boys, or like the guys that was younger than her. Well, Arnold Mitchell's home was to be raided, but Arnold was staying with Georgia Gosley at 1101 St. Paul Street. Kirk Smoke was the state's attorney. Stu Sims was the assistant state's attorney. There were some powerful members. There were some powerful members in the white community, judges that was running the courthouse. One of them name was R.H. Hammerman. Hammerman ran a club that he started in 1946 called the Lancers Club. And he, of course, used that to recruit young boys into this program. It was young boys that went to elite schools and most of them were the first blacks. So back then they said the first Negroes to go to City High, first Negroes go to Poly. Kurt Smoke, Stu Sims, Larry Gibson, many of the judges, Billy Murphy, they were all in the Lancers Club. Yeah, I'm saying this because in the book, Wes Moore talks about Kurt Smoke was one of his mentors, right? So that's the other interesting part of this, right? Because there was no history of how he got here to Baltimore City, you know, because he didn't go to school here. So what he hasn't answered, when did he first step into Baltimore City? Who was the one that tried to give him street cred to say he was from Baltimore City? Because this is kind of like The Wire. Somebody said, yeah, I was in The Wire. What they trying to do? Get street cred. They telling tall tales, right? I grew up in Baltimore. First thing you're going to ask them, what part of Baltimore, where you grow up at, man? What street did you grow up on? What corner store did you go to? So there was nobody, coming back to that could vet and count for Wes Moore. So this whole thing was that, again, the Georgia Gosley, and I can go deeper into this, but Hammerman ran a club, and it was a boys' club, but in that boys' club was a lot of sexual abuse of boys that was going on, but it was all part of initiations. If you Google an article in the year 2000, Baltimore Sun wrote it and other news outlets wrote it. There was a young man who was a class Victorian at Gilman High School. They just came out with a report last year about sexual abuse at Gilman, but it wasn't confined to Gilman High School. This was coming out of the Lancers Club, Lancer, right? Hammerman, I think a month later, they said committed suicide, shot himself in the chest 2 times, they said. But before he was killed, let's be clear, or suicided, he wrote a 5-page letter to every member and former member of the Lancers Club. And nobody else was ever charged with sexual abuse of boys in the Lancers Club, and neither did any of these so-called elite, Boulay, Prince Hall, whatever fraternity they may be in, right? Members came forward. I'm talking about the black members now, to say I, too, was abused by R.H. Hammerman, or R.I. Hammerman, I think, Hammerman. You can Google that, who ran the courthouse for years. Now, I had a Jewish guy who was an assistant state's attorney at the time. His name was Glavin, right? Glavin. He was told by Hammerman that we're going to make Kurt, this is what they were telling him, because people oftentimes think that you elect people, but there are those behind the scenes that select them long before you think you're going to elect them, okay? All right? So Hammerman told Glavin, if you would prosecute Arnold Mitchell, right, not Georgia Gosley. They let Georgia Gosley leave, and she moved to Florida till the coast was clear, and then she moved back here maybe about 7-8 years ago. She moved back to Baltimore. But Glavin was told by Hammerman, if you prosecute Arnold Mitchell, when we make Kirk Smoke the mayor, is what he told him. He said, we're going to make you the state's attorney. Well, Glavin prosecuted Arnold Mitchell. Arnold Mitchell got 8 years in prison, and Glavin didn't get the state's attorney position. They gave it to Stu Sims, right? That's how Stu Sims got it, and Kirk Smoke became the mayor. Then Stu Sims gave up that position to go work for Governor Glendenning as his director of juvenile services, and the position went to Miss Patricia Jessamy, whose husband was Howard Jessamy, who was tight with Kirk Smoke and Sims because they came up in the Lancers Club together. So I just wanted to lay all that out when we talk about drug kingpins, some real drug kingpins. And Stu Sims and Kirk Smoke wrote a letter to the police department under Commissioner Woods at the time. And in the letter, Arnold Mitchell, Glavin never got the job, but Glavin kept the files. So when Arnold Mitchell later got out of jail, Arnold Mitchell bumped into Glavin because Arnold was now teaching classes at the Jewish Community Center, the JCC, up in Park Heights, right? So Arnold bumps into him going in the center. The man says to Arnold, I got something I want to give you. He goes to his trunk and gets the files and gave the files to Arnold Mitchell. So I'm doing radio over at Radio 1. Arnold saw me downtown at Jay's Restaurant on Charles Street. We struck up a conversation. He said, he was telling me the story. He said, I want to give you the files because I trust your integrity, right? And that's one thing Dick Gregory, one of my teachers, always told me. You always got to keep your integrity and your character. And people will come to you and give you information that they will never give anyone else because they trust you're going to keep the source, right? And you're going to keep the information, and you're not going to expose who you got the information from. And I kept it and shared the files on my radio and been talking about it for years. Kurt Smoker ain't never said I'm lying. Stu Sims ain't never said I'm lying. Georgia Gosley haven't never said I'm lying. They just want to know how'd you become so bodacious and have the testicular fortitude to say it without thinking about what consequences are going to come down.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow. All right.
I just wanted to say that because it was wrong what Wes Moore did to try to portray my nephews as drug kingpins when nothing could be further from the truth. And coming to why they're in jail, when they committed that crime, my nephews were not teenagers. They were 26 and 23 years old. So you don't blame the mother. You don't blame the family for a crime they committed as adults. You understand? But that's what was done to my family to put that stain on my family as other countless families. When their sons or daughters go out and commit crimes, you don't blame the entire family. And I worked and helped my nephews, and I had moved out of town and was living in Delaware when this crime occurred. And see, Wes Moore don't talk about not just one niece who was having a wedding and the police came and pulled them out the car and put them in the rain on the sidewalk in their wedding gowns and tuxedos.
Oh, come on.
They
really?
were knocking in doors of relatives. All times of night, right? This is what they were doing. So it was again selfishness on behalf of my nephews to do what they did. But at the same time, for Wes Moore to do that, he tried to just minimize it down to my nephews and my older sister. He don't talk about what all the other family had to endure. The phone calls, right? Being under constant observation by police, right? Police knocking on your doors, kicking your doors, searching your homes. I'm all the way up in Delaware. And what saved me, because when my nephews committed the crime, and in it, the off-duty officer Bruce Prothero, who was working and moonlighting as a security officer at Brown's Jewelers, which is one of the elite jewelry stores where your athletes, your entertainers, it's like what Jacobs is in New York City, where all the rappers and entertainers be talking about they got their jewelry from Jacobs. So Brown's, which sits in Pikesville, is that type of jewelry store. So when my nephews committed this crime, made off with about maybe $500,000 worth of merchandise, the two individuals that was with them, they got caught within 24, 48 hours, right? But my nephews left town. And in the book, Wes Moore says that my nephew Tony Richard Moore admitted to shooting Officer Bruce Prothero. Well, he said Bruce Prothero died at the scene, which he did not die at the scene. He died maybe 45 minutes to an hour later. But in the book, Wes Moore said he died at the scene, which didn't happen.
Right.
Then Wes Moore said there was this all-out bulletin, and his mother called him. This is what he said. Now, the boy going to lie on his mother. I'm saying, is there anybody this boy won't lie on to sell a book? The boy said his mother called him and said the police. He said, my mother called me and said there are billboards out with my name on it, that they're looking for me. This is what he said. When the picture went out, it was the picture of my two nephews. It was never no picture of Wes Moore. But this is what he did to embellish himself. And this is what he said. So my nephews, of course, were on the run, and they bypassed me in Delaware and went to Philadelphia and told my uncle, David Eebron, who was the oldest of my grandmother's sons, and told them that they were coming in front of the family because the family was coming up to go to New York. And so my uncle let them stay there. What happened was the police and the FBI were monitoring my uncle's home, had been in and out of my uncle's home unbeknownst to him. And what saved him from being charged as harboring a fugitive was my sister Angie, who's the third-born sister. She had written a letter to my uncle. She called me first and said Tony and Mook had robbed a jewelry store, and that the police are looking for them, and they could be coming to Delaware. Now, I'm saying they know the kind of person I am. I've never been arrested, never been charged. You understand? My life has been, just explicit in terms of my quality of life and the standard of life, right, that I live. So I said they wouldn't come here, and they definitely not going to call me because they know I would turn them in, right? So what saved my uncle was that my sister had written him a letter saying that my nephews could be heading that way and told them what had happened. And when the FBI saw that, then that was further evidence that my uncle was not harboring any fugitives, but they caught my nephews in Philadelphia is what happened. Am I telling the truth, brother?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So So, but for Wes Moore to say his mother called him and said the police was looking for him, I mean, nothing could be further from the truth, brother, is what I'm saying. So he was using this to embellish himself, to tell this tall tale, even in the commercials that he's run, saying his father died at 3 years old. He saw his father die. That couldn't happen because I told you the laws were children couldn't go in the hospital. So he wouldn't have been allowed to go in the hospital. Right? Yeah. Then say he felt the cuffs, he felt handcuffs on him at 11 years old. You say, where's the record of that, man? So he's embellishing that to do what? Get himself some more street cred, saying I'm from Baltimore. Right?
So,
and if somebody where we are, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me ask a question. Okay, because I've seen all that in the commercial, and I've seen Fox 45 actually. Mackenzie Frost, I believe, challenged him about his identity. That not from Baltimore.
Exposed.
So how? Yeah. So how is he allowed? How can he be 30% ahead in the governor's race with all these lies?
Right. Well, polls is one thing, as Dr. King always said. Polls ask, is it popular? But he said, vanity asks, does it look good? But he said at night when you lay down, your conscience got to ask, is it right? But it shows how corrupt that the Democratic Party has become, that rather than offer the best, they offered maybe the less, or the one who was backed by Wall Street and forces on Wall Street. Because if you ask most black people, tell me 5 things about Wes Moore, in Baltimore and Maryland, even those who think they the creme de la creme, even those that think they the smartest of our people. Tell me 5 things about Wes Moore that you know. They couldn't tell you 2 things. See? So it lets you see, even though Halloween is not for another couple of weeks, man, the people have been tricked and treated already. You understand? Right? That the Democratic Party have always told black folk, right? Work from within, right? Work your way up. You know, kind of like what Drake say, I started from the bottom, now we're here, right? They told black folk, work from the bottom and work your way up. You know what I mean? Be the head of a PTA first, then join the board, then come on all the way up, run for delegate or state senator, right? But all the black folks for the over 200 plus years the Democratic Party been in existence in Maryland have played by that rule and never got the opportunity to ascend to become the governor in Maryland, right? So just think about that. I mentioned Kurt Smoke, Stu Sims. Just think about all the blacks who've been mayor. Normally, if you're the mayor, you go from being the mayor to the governor in Maryland because Baltimore has been the most powerful city and historically the most populous city, right? But yet, the only 2 mayors in recent history that were allowed to ascend to become governor were Martin O'Malley and William Donald Schaefer, right? 2 white guys, right? The 2 white guys, right?
Right.
So
right.
It shows you how corrupted and co-opted the Democratic Party has become. That they didn't want a Rashawn Baker, who had been an executive in Prince George's County. They didn't want a white man and Peter Franchot, who had been the comptroller, right? So when you have those talking about Dan Cox and the Republican Party pulled the coup, I'm saying, no, the Democratic Party pulled the coup on Peter Franchot. Because Franchot could have challenged O'Malley, he could have challenged Brown, he could have challenged others, and most likely would have won.
All that experience.
Right, but because Wall Street has put so much money behind Wes Moore that they basically think that they have bought them a governor's seat in Maryland. And this is the reality. And what I'm saying, the news media knows what Mackenzie Frost talked about, right? And she's like the new Jane Miller, right? Because Jane Miller retired, but she went silent over the past couple of years. So I think Fox 45. People got upset because they saw myself and my brother on Fox 45. If you, knowing me, the years you've known me in Baltimore City, and you've never seen me on Fox 45, right? Then you know it's must be something happening that I would come out of my comfort zone to go on the Fox 45 and do an interview, right? So, but that's what most people they don't ask me. Well, what is it that you would go on Fox 45 to do an interview about, right? So, but I jokingly say tongue in cheek, I don't have a problem with Fox. I'm a child of the 60s and the 70s, so we grew up with Red Fox, Vivica Fox, right? Jamie Foxx. I don't have a problem with Fox, right? So, and one of my favorite car commercials was, hey, Fox Chevrolet, man. So if someone's telling the truth, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, I'm navigating toward the truth. I'm not navigating toward the complexion. I'm looking at the connections. And when I look at Wes Moore and I see his connections to Harvey Weinstein, I see his connections to George Soros, right? Then the Robin Hood Foundation, when you see that board that he sat on, when I see his connections to the Clintons, and the Clintons' global initiative, when I see his connections to the Clintons and their policies that was not in the best interest of blacks in Baltimore, I got serious problems with that. And then he starts trying to have this romance about John Hopkins at a time when you had groups and those that was protesting, activists saying, tear down the Confederate statues, tear down the racist statues of the racists that owned slaves. Well, John Hopkins owned slaves. What do you think Lake Clifton was? That was his summer plantation right there, right? You know that, right, brother?
I didn't know that. Dr. McKenzie, did you know that?
John Hopkins owned slaves. That's why they never touched the mansion where Civic Works sit, because that was the mansion where the slave master John Hopkins sat and watched his slaves pick cotton. Right? They still got tunnels under the golf course there, which were for homes for the bad slaves. Put them under the tunnels. That's where they'll live. So you didn't hear Wes Moore and these activists saying tear down the statue of John Hopkins. The subject never came up. Likewise, he relishes and saying he was a Rhodes Scholar. Any self-respecting African or person of African descent would never, ever, ever accept a Rhodes Scholar in the name of Cecil Rhodes, who killed millions of Africans for the British Crown and stole all the wealth out of South Africa and other African nations and shipped them to Britain. So, I mean, like, what self-respected man, you get somebody like Kurt Smoke, and I think that's their plan with Wes Moore, is to try to do what they did with Barack Obama, do what they did with Colin Powell, and he's already in the book saying he was a Rhodes Scholar like Kurt Smoke. He had worked from
Johns Hopkins, yeah.
So, right, and then Kurt Smoke was the one that recommended him to go to Johns Hopkins. In the book, he said Kurt Smoke introduced him to William Brodie, the president of Johns Hopkins. Then he said Kurt Smoke introduced him to Franklin Raines, another Sigma Pi Phi Boule member who worked closely with the Clinton family. So that's in the book for those that read the book. So he's connecting dots that you don't even have to have an etching sketch to see who Wes Moore is tied to. Now, as it relates to the Robin Hood Foundation, where he sat on the board with Harvey Weinstein. And interesting enough, Weinstein goes on trial 3 days from now, on the 11th, for crimes against children, crimes against underage girls. So at a time that Oprah Winfrey and some of the women were talking about the Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement, attacking Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, digging up Michael Jackson and trying to kill him again from this side, right? She said nothing about Weinstein. Wes Moore is sitting on the board with Weinstein at a fundraiser. If you Google April, I think it was August 2017, they were at a fundraiser down in the Hamptons in Virginia, and Wes Moore was there with his mentor, Harvey Weinstein. So Wes Moore never denounced Harvey Weinstein's actions against children, but at the same time, he said, leave no child behind. So you say, leave no child behind or leave no child's behind. Because that's one of the greatest crimes right now is crimes against children when you look at what's taking place right now, right?
All right, Kenny, he's out of control. He's out of control. Stop him, Kenny.
No, but it's the truth. And Wes Moore was paid nearly $1 million for once Weinstein got in trouble and Paul Tudor Jones. See, these people are private equity fund owners. They're private hedge fund owners that are worth billions of dollars that's riding in like the Four Horsemen with Wes Moore. And the Four Horsemen in the book was bringing death. They wasn't bringing light. They wanted to control this rich economy in Maryland, this surplus economy that's in Maryland, that they can come in and cut and gut like vultures, like jackals, like leopards, is like coyotes is what they want to come in and do. And just because Wes Moore is the getaway driver don't make it right. You understand what I'm saying? Just because he's the one holding the bag for him don't make it right.
Here's what I heard today when I was coming back from my meeting today. I heard Oprah Winfrey endorsing and doing a commercial for Wes Moore. I'm like, when have I ever heard that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Oprah
Winfrey. For Barack Obama. Right. Now, brother, you remember, I think my sister Mary, after this whole tragedy, this is how they set her up, because she's nice, big heart, right? But she's still grieving as a mother because she essentially lost 2 sons, that the only time she would see her sons is behind 6 inches of plexiglass. She couldn't wake up in the morning and have, breakfast or lunch or dinner, with her sons, right? And so she was excoriated and held up as a poster child for what's wrong with mothers, particularly black mothers around the country. She was invited to go on the Oprah Winfrey show. And she never reached out to me, or to my knowledge, reached out to my brother Kenny, who's on the line. Had she reached out to me, I would have dealt with them. I would have dealt with them properly, right, and asking the questions that need to be asked. So she was taken on there and really embarrassed, but at the same time, she's under the glitz, the glamour of the lights, and don't realize what they're doing is basically saying, this is the black woman that you don't want to be like. And while with them bringing Wes Moore mother on there, Miss Joy, to say, this is the mother you do want to be like. This is the son you do want to have. So it wasn't just an exploitation. And we grew up at a time of knowing exploitation, blaxploitation, misappropriation, right? with blaxploitation films. This is what they did with the book. It was blaxploitation in the 21st century or the new millennium by this millennial or this minstrel, Wes Moore, and his handlers. And I was able to see that. But I think many of my family members didn't see it, that they thought that this boy doing a book and talking to my nephew was going to somehow help my nephew get an appeal and get a new case. And as I said to my nephew, because Wes Moore tried to be so deceptive in his actions that after my brother questioned him about the book, and once we did the interview with Mackenzie Frost, my nephew called me from prison through a third party. I hadn't spoken to my nephew in years. And you can't go see him right now during the pandemic, scamdemic that's going on, right? But somehow Wes Moore was able to get access to my nephew and ask them to ask us not to do any more interviews. And my thoughts and comments to my nephew was that you had your opportunity to speak. I was never given my opportunity. I was never given a chance to tell my story. For somebody that would lie about my mother and my father in the book on page 22, say my father was a drunk and my father had to drink in order to break the news to his children that his loving wife had passed and we would never see her again. See, I never got a chance to tell that side of my story, that I was in a cast up to my hip. My leg was broke, and I had to go to the funeral of my mother that way. And Wes Moore didn't reach out to me and talking to me or my family about that. That's an insult to me as a black man, that you would reach that low to do something like that. And I'll never forgive him for that.
It's the cruelty of people for greed is incredible. And
it's sad, man, because the thing was that, you know, he even talked about my mother's death. And, you know, you cannot give up medical records.
Information. That's a violation of HIPAA.
If you giving up information. My mom died from kidney disease. And then you go into details about how people get kidney disease. You know, how she had too many children that damaged her kidneys. You know, how he just talked about my mother like she was a nobody. You know, he talked about how poor my mother and father were, that they wasn't able to rent a 3-story house, that, you know, that it was a person killed in a house that we was able to rent, so we was able to get a discount and able to move into a 3-story house with all the children. You know, so these things was things that was not actually true that he was saying, you know. And my father loved my mother dearly. And when she was in that casket, and he knew that was the last time he seen her, and he grabbed onto her and he was trying to pull her up in his arms. And that was personal. That was something that he did, and it shouldn't have went in the book. To talk about, you know, my father doing such things as that. You know, he put the whole life on the line, but he never talked about his father, how it was at his father's funeral, how his mother cried. You know, you don't hear that side of the story. But here's this guy who say that he is so pro-black, but yet he don't have a black woman running with him. He go choose some other you know, race that runs with him, but still telling the black women to vote for him. You know, and and you look at the home. They show the home that he has, a mansion.
Right.
You know,
A villa.
It shows no connection to the poor black community at all.
Right.
None at all. This is all money that he made off of the book.
Yeah.
Majority of that money the money he made off the book that was able to buy him a home like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yet Wesley is living in a penitentiary, in a cell that he had to share with someone who's suffering more than Wes had ever suffered in his life. And this man living in a mansion, but made millions of dollars off his book. He went to Wes Moore. He went to my nephew Wes Moore's son. He said he went to him to get him into a drug treatment program, which he never did. My nephew Wes' daughter went to college. He said no children left behind. He didn't even pay for my niece college wishes or nothing. He paid for nothing. She still paying for her college. She's still paying for that.
Student loans. Well, let me interject, because one of the things that, if we had a real black press outside of these kind of shows, Brother Steve, that they would have known the history of Wes Moore when he worked for Citigroup. He worked for Citibank, one of the biggest predatory lenders that stole black wealth in terms of black home foreclosures was Citibank, and Wes Moore was a broker for Citibank. Now, I've been talking about this on my show, and no one in the black press have said I'm lying. Wes Moore people haven't said I'm lying. It came up at a debate with at the Democratic gubernatorial debate at MPT. It was attorney Tom Perez, who had worked in the Obama administration, but prior to that, he worked in the Consumer Protection Agency. And he asked Wes Moore about his work for Citibank and, of course, the stealing of black wealth, but majority black, because they gave us, of course, the predatory loans and the adjustable rate mortgages, steal black wealth. The largest county and richest black county historically in Maryland has been Prince George's County. Blacks in Prince George's County are still feeling the effects of the predatory 2008 mortgage crisis, but yet black women are getting behind Wes Moore, telling our people vote for them. You say, man, you voting for somebody who came in and essentially took advantage of you. I would like to say really financially, in terms of the abuse of you, and they've never made this right wrong or this wrong right. Now, the other part of Citibank that Wes Moore worked for was the branch that gave college loans to college students, which was also predatory. You understand? And when black students are graduating from college, they got to go move back home with their parents, or they paying back student loans 10 years later. Thanks to Citibank, which was number one or number two in predatory loans, which targeted. Today, Morgan is having their homecoming, and I'm sure Wes Moore probably is on campus somewhere snaking his way around alumni and former alumni, hissing, right? But Wes Moore and Citibank are the biggest predatory lenders of loans, student loans, at HBCUs. And that's a story that the media won't talk about. If they did, the people would see Wes Moore for what truly he really is, which has just been a con man for the most part. For Wall Street is what he's been. And that's the reality in 2021. And like I said, I've been telling this story and sharing the information. I told it to Kimberly Klasick recently, and she had to go online and read because she didn't know that Wes Moore was on the board of the Robin Hood Foundation. We said, well, they got that part right. They robbing the hood. It ain't Robin Hood. Y'all forgot one word in there. Robin the Hood is what they've been doing, right? So it's reverse Robin Hood, where they steal from the poor and give to the rich. And that's the board that Wes Moore sat on, and only recently stepped down because he knew he was going to run for governor in 2022 in Maryland, and that was it. But they don't. Cannot give you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What kind of political experience does he have to be a jump from nobody to a governor?
None. See, normally the Democratic Party tell our people you got to come through the party. not to the party. Right. There's an old saying, there's some went and some sent. See, he was sent here. He didn't come up through the ranks in Baltimore City. They would never allow any other person to ascend. That's how you know this was a coup, and this is something more dangerous. They let an outsider who has never belonged to the Democratic Party. They really wanted to make him the mayor in Baltimore City in 2015. They really tried to bring him to the surface after the Freddie Gray uprisings and the revolts and the riots. So they were looking at that they wanted to run him for mayor, but then obviously his handlers, which is also Martin O'Malley. Martin O'Malley people, I can give you an article to read from Media Matters. Media Matters wrote an extensive article. Who's having fundraisers for Wes Moore? You should pull the article up and read it. I'll send it to you. And they
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, is old Lucky Charms behind this?
O'Malley. Yeah. O'Malley. Yeah. O'Malley's behind Brandon Scott. And Wes Moore was on Brandon Scott's transition team. So O'Malley controls Brandon Scott. O'Malley controlled the Mosbys. It was O'Malley's treasurer by the name of Martin Cadigan, Cadogan. Martin Cadigan, who's a lawyer, has a law firm in Towson, right? He was the treasurer for Merlin Mosby and for Nick Mosby, for Brandon Scott, and for Jack Young. So this is still the house that O'Malley built and controlled down there at 201 Holiday Street or Sesame Street, however you want to look at it.
Daren, I tell you, I love you, man. You're like my counter identity, because whatever I get, I talk about it. This is it.
But O'Malley is the senior advisor at a law firm downtown called Grant Thornton. I think it's one of the largest law firms. They come out of Chicago, and O'Malley is a senior advisor there. But if you pull up this article, and I'll send it to you, from Media Matters, Merlin Matters, talking about who's holding fundraisers for Wes Moore. And they give you the dates they're having them. I mean, I could go to the article now and show you who's hosting fundraisers. Just recently, Isaac Yitzi Schleifer and Delegate Delia Attar held a fundraiser for him, you know. But they lay out everybody that's giving money to him. And they talk about O'Malley, the Gallagher boys that surround O'Malley, O'Malley PR firm, John Lara, Colleen Lara, how these people have been having fundraisers for Wes Moore. So clearly, as I said, they pulled a coup d'etat on Peter Francho because Francho played ball, had been a good boy, could have challenged it and shook up the Democratic Party, but he played ball with them. And then when it became Francho's turn, then, of course, they snatched it from him and said, we're going to give it to an unknown, because Wall Street has decided that they want to, you know, they used to have that movement back in 2011, Occupy Wall Street. This is going to be Occupy Y'all Street. You understand? So what they're coming with right now, using Wes Moore.
So
if they're
we will
able
have
to successfully get this.
We will have a continuation of the ludicrous, apathetic, arrogant, and stupid leadership that we have in Baltimore City by the mayor spread to the governor.
Yep. But it's going to be even more dangerous because, as I said, they're looking at the pensions, the enormous amount of money that's in the pension funds, and they want to come in and cut and gut a lot of state workers' pension, right? City workers' pension, first responders, firefighters, police pension. And then they want to bring in more of these so-called public-private partnerships. There's no such thing as a it's kind of like I know we on Christian radio, but it's kind of like a shy prostitute. You understand what I'm saying? Talking about a private-public partnership. It's either going to be private or it's going to be public. You understand? But this is what they're trying to push on
you're going to be thrown out the air.
In the state of Maryland. No.
Okay.
You know, but this is what they're saying, you know? Now when you go to Wes Moore's agendas, telling you he's looking out for equity for the LGBTQZ community. See, they're now going to be the new minority. When we start following money, the new word minority is not black men and black women. It's not even going to be brown men and black. The new word for minority will be those who identify as being transgenders. And the new movement is that you got white males now that are saying they're no longer men, but they're now women, is what they're saying. They're gender fluid. And if you need to look any further, recently you saw the two doctors at Hopkins that got arrested for trying to information. Well, you saw one of them was a man who said he's no longer a man, but he's a woman, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
horrible.
And when the news media, when the Banner wrote the article, Justin Fitton, the people on social media was more mad with Justin Fitton for identifying the man as a man and not calling him a woman. so I said, don't call him a man or a woman. Call him what he is, a criminal. You understand? But this is, they were getting caught up in the pronouns. But if Wes Moore gets in, this is what they want to bring into the school. That they want more. They want more children being early sexualized. Children, the pedophile agenda is what it is, which is really a Luciferian satanic agenda. Let's just cut right to the chase, okay?
Now,
really
I will say, and I got to be very careful, that Reverend Willie Ray, years ago, a mentor, when Martin always after me Lucky Charms won the election, he had a party at a Hammer Jacks, and he had waitresses dressed up as Playboy bunnies. Mm-hmm. This was, I guess, an idea of his perversion. It's before he allegedly slept with the reporter and impregnated her.
Absolutely.
He served his hors d'oeuvres looking like male anatomy. That's all I can say right there.
Yes, sir.
I had to go because this just tells me the pervertedness of his mind.
Yes, sir.
So I believe everything that you're saying.
Yeah. Well, Jesus said, Paul said we war not against flesh and blood, right? So this is the fight right here, you know. So in one instinct, you know, I would love to see Dan Cox ascend to the governor's seat. But on another part, if Wes Moore ascends there, then we have to put on that whole armor of God, because the forces that's riding in with him, again, are these satanic Luciferian forces that are riding in. And when they come in, their plan, of course, as I said, is to attack the nuclear family, the extended family, to try to take the education of the children away from the parenting is what they want. They want more because all of this is part of their agenda. When you look at what he's talking about, and I'm not making it up, it's clear cut when you go to his page, when you go to his website to see what it is.
What's his website?
And then I'm sorry?
What's his website?
Oh, Wes Moore for Governor. Wes Moore for Governor. And when you go to it, he's not hiding it in terms of what they would like to implement and what they want to bring in. You know,
he's probably saying they're too stupid to understand what's going on because we're so smart.
Absolutely. I mean, because we got a media basically, and when you start watching some of the media, you find out that some of the media, their managers, and those that might own their media outlets are those who have already contributed to Wes Moore's campaign. So what is it that they want in return? They want access, right? They want funding. They want contracts. So clearly this is what we see because they say money is the oil of the engine to politics. So when you read who's having fundraisers for them, then you can see what it is that they really want if you're able to kind of just use some deductive reasoning for the most part. But again, it's the media that's not sharing that information and having these kind of conversations we're having here. But coming back to the book, like I said, I mean the book was to introduce Wes Moore, where he created this hashtag I am Wes Moore. Now that's very powerful because you're putting yourself on a level of God, right? Right? That's what got Moses in trouble. Must I smite this rock, right? Because you can't do nothing without me, Chuck. What do you mean must I smite this rock, right? So that's what got Moses in trouble. So here he is. I am Wes Moore. You understand? Right?
Wow. There is no other.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Saying there is no other. I am Wes Moore. Right? Is what he's saying. So that's kind of that's what they
Kenny.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I knew there'd be trouble when I got Daren on here, but it's okay. It's been the most exciting hour and 15 minutes. I tell you. So we're going to distribute this all around, and hopefully folks will be able to listen and learn something and then do something appropriate. And that is look at Baltimore City. We don't need to have this spread to the state of Maryland. We need to keep frauds out and get rid of Martin O'Malley. And get that Brandon Baby Scott, who don't know what he's doing, out of the mayorship before we are totally tore up.
Right.
Matter of fact, when you throw him out, throw out the school CEO, throw her out because she's making too much money doing nothing. Throw out the commissioner, I call him Burger Boy. let's send him packing. Because
yes, sir.
we get some real leaders up in here, boy, I tell you.
That's right. They say if the blind lead the blind, they all fall in a ditch. And where there's no vision, the people will perish. If the people are perishing because the leadership don't have a vision, the greatest resource are the citizens, the human capital in this city. And if they don't know how to solve a squeegee problem, or the whites that's down there panhandling that I call the BGs, and you can't solve them problems, you ain't be able to solve nothing else in the city. And the job of the mayor is at least make the transportation run on time and get your trash and recycling picked up. And he can't seem to do that right there. That's the sad part. But again,
I heard something. I can't talk to you about it. I have talked about it offline, but I heard something. I can't. It's so scandalous from a reigning authority about your mayor that I have to monitor myself. I'll just say this.
Well, yeah,
that I was joking. I was joking a long time ago when I said that he hasn't solved the squeegee problem, because if you take his little shirt and suit off, a little flat-chested mayor, and you put on a white beater shirt, he could be a squeegee kid.
He could be a squeegee. When we was coming up, we call them suey boys, man. They just got too much estrogen in their system. You understand? So we call them suey boys. You understand? So you can tell boys that's been raised by men and boys that haven't been raised by men. That's the problem that we have with those in leadership position right now. Bunch of effeminized suey boy, Dairy Queen type individuals that's in positions of power. They don't have the testicular fortitude to run. I mean, they shouldn't even be, and this is how you know it, because the boy be talking about he's from Park Heights again. Only those with bad credit need co-signers. You ain't never heard nobody say, man, I remember Brandon Scott playing B&BL, Project Survivor. Boy, he had a mean crossover on the basketball court. You ain't never heard nobody say, man, he sure could run through that ball when he played football. You ain't never heard nobody say a mean tennis hand. You mean maybe he played badminton or was over there on the side playing basketball with girls. You ain't never heard nobody say.
No, you're out of control, man. I heard a lady say to me, who was going to be a vocal student, say to me that he came to a town hall meeting, and I said, well, okay, well, that was the first miracle. He showed up to something. He said, well, the second is that he had a puppy in his arms. I said, a puppy? Yeah. I knew he wasn't an alpha male when I saw that.
Right. No, he's a beta male, man.
I'm saying, you remember Thurston Howell and Gilligan's Island?
Yeah.
It's always a rich old white woman have puppies.
Right, that's it. But this is what you got down there in City Hall, man.
Kenny, Daren has got me in trouble again.
Yeah, we had.
You saw him get me in trouble.
All I'm doing is making trouble for Satan.
Episode. We had the last episode of Wizard of Art, when we had one that needed brain and the other one needed courage, and the other one needed heart. And we're talking about the police commissioner who need courage, and we're talking about the state's attorney, Maryland, who needs a heart, and we're talking about Brandon Scott, who needs a brain.
Yes, sir.
And so
that's right.
This is where we at.
Right. That's right.
And pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, which is Martin O'Malley.
That's Martin O'Malley, right? When you understand it, right?
That's Satan himself.
But and somebody got to be like, what was the dog in Wizard of Oz? Toto? Somebody just got to be like Toto and just pull back the curtains, man. And for some of them, we got to lift up the curtains, you know? They wearing skirts, you know? Somebody just got to be like Toto. If we got to be that black Toto, then we'll be the black Toto to show the Toto of what's going on. That's all. And I will relish in being Toto. That's all, because he had the courage to do what none of the other ones would do.
Absolutely.
Amen. Well, I tell you, this has been I'm sure, unforgettable. I'm going to make sure that I send the powers that be this episode so they can know exactly what we think.
Yeah. Well, they know how to reach me, brother. I've been in Baltimore. I'm born and raised. As my brother, the great C. Miles, would always say, I'm be more born, be more raised, and when I die, I'm going to be in a be more grave. They know how to reach me and reach my brother. So if we were saying anything that wasn't true, you know they would have reached out to us by now. They would call my show and say I'm lying. some of the ones that's monitoring your show right now would call up and be saying, "Get ye behind me, Satan." But then I'd have to rebuke them and say, "Satan walking with you. What are you talking about? You walking with Satan." You know, I ought to say, "You're coming down, Satan. You walking with Satan coming to me." Right?
Satan would
right.
Satan would come to some of them for suggestions.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, y'all something else, boy. I appreciate you. Well,
I appreciate you for giving us the opportunity, brother. Like I said, man, I grew up in this city, my brother, and those that know me, but they're afraid, right? They say perfect love casts out fear. So people ask me, what am I to be afraid for? I'm standing on truth. I love my mother. And there's nothing like the love that a little black boy, a little black girl, but particularly that black boy has for his mother, right? That gave me life. My first teacher, my first nurse, my first God. I didn't know God. I knew my mother who introduced me to God. So you can't frighten me with that at all. You know? As you afraid,
let me ask you
I'm standing on truth.
And that's all you can do. Let me ask you this question here, because we're well over time, but it's okay. The question I want to ask you is, what can you do about it? Can you sue them?
Well, first chance we get, and it ain't about money. Let's be clear about that. But again, as I said to Mackenzie Frost on Fox 45, that Wes Moore first should denounce the book, right? Denounce the book. If he wasn't the one that spun the lie, denounce the publishers who spun the lie. But Wes Moore didn't do that. He went on Oprah. He went on McNeil Lehrer. He went on PBS. He went on The View. He went on the Tonight Show with Stephen Colbert. He went on all these shows saying that, I'm from Baltimore. He never stopped them and said, wait a minute, that's incorrect. I'm sorry, I wasn't born in Baltimore. It's on the back cover of the book. This is a story of two boys born blocks apart, where he wasn't born blocks apart at all. So he allowed the lie to get out there, to give himself street cred, right? And if you did that in the military, saying that he had a bronze medal when he didn't have a bronze medal, if you would have done that while you were in the military, you get court-martialed, you get charged. And you'd have got purged out of the military, like they're doing a purge now for men who are saying they don't want to take the shot, or men that are saying I don't want to be a woman. They say, well, we got to get you up out of here because we need some tenderonies in the military. But nevertheless, this is the story that Wes Moore spun, and he should denounce the book, pull the book out of circulation. But for Wes Moore to say no child left behind, then come into Baltimore City public schools, which should be investigated, like a Kathy Pugh Healthy Holly Ponzi scheme. How did Wes Moore book get into Baltimore City public school to become required reading? In one of the public school systems in the country, you made the book required reading. You've never done that for blacks like Thurgood Marshall, the Mitchell family, and other prominent blacks in Baltimore. Their books have never been required reading. So how did Wes Moore's book become required reading? So that means somebody was doing a lot of handshaking, somebody was reading palms, and somebody was greasing some palms, if you know what I mean, my brother, for that book to become required reading inside of Baltimore City Public School. So he didn't donate the books to charity. He came in and got a contract. So that should be investigated from the governor's office to the state prosecutor office, to the inspector general on the state level and on the city level. Was it Tisha Edwards? Was it Andre Alonzo? Who in the school system gave the green light for schools to purchase this book and make it required reading? So as I said, he should step down out of the governor's race. We want a governor who's honest. We want a man with integrity, with character, with valor, all the things they taught him supposedly in the military. In Valley Forge Academy, which I didn't get into and talk about the sexual abuses that went on there, that could be the reason why he kept running away from Valley Forge. What was really going on at Valley Forge, right? And he kept trying to run away from Valley Forge. So we'll talk about that on another show. But he should denounce the book, take that book off of the shelves, apologize to my family, to the family of Sergeant Bruce Prothero, whose widow said Wes Moore went on TV saying that he was donating proceeds of the book to the Prothero family and to Police Foundation in the name of Bruce Prothero, and they said they've never seen anything like that. You understand? So the boy he's a pathological serial liar. Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so the boy is a serial pathological liar is what he is, which makes him very, 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 very dangerous, right? And so that's what
I can see him aligning with Martin O'Malley like it.
Yeah, it's no different than what happened with Oprah Winfrey years ago when a guy named James, I think his name was James Breyer or Fryer, he said he wrote a book called A Million Little Pieces. And Oprah brought him on, and the book became a bestseller, #1 top seller, and then came out that the guy never wrote the book. And Oprah Winfrey said she would never be deceived again by anybody who wrote a book and bring them on and make it a bestseller. And I said someone should call Oprah and say, you've been had, you've been deceived, you've been hoodwinked by Wes Moore and his handler, Harvey Weinstein, with this book saying he's from Baltimore. Because Oprah spent time here in Baltimore. So she would have asked Wes Moore, what part of Baltimore are you from? So it lets you see, as I said, by sitting and watching how deep and how steep this conspiracy really goes, my brother. How low down it goes in the rabbit hole or how high up it goes for those who spun this story about Wes Moore. Because they had plenty of time to check it, fact check it, cross check it, and then eject it and reject it to say, no, you're a fraud. We see you coming, man. This is identity fraud. And none of them did that. So now it's incumbent upon myself and my brother. And what we're doing is not making us popular. It's not popular with some of the family members who see Wes Moore as a weaponized celebrity, the way they've tried to, sell him as a celebrity. But I didn't come in this world to be popular. Jesus wasn't popular. If we really want to tell the truth, right? Tell a certain point. So we standing on the shoulders of great men and women, man. That when they were among their comrades and among the people, the stands they took didn't make them popular. Dr. King wasn't popular with the stands he took. Malcolm X wasn't popular with the stands that he took, right? So I relish in taking those kind of stands that I'm not going with the grain, but we going against the grain. And history will record what we've done in this dispensation of time to tell the truth and to defend our honor and our dignity around, again, this book. And that's how we can end the Wes Moore scandal. But somebody has to be held accountable and will be held accountable. And as I said, it ain't about the money. It's about the principles. The King family sued the killers of Dr. King and the Memphis Police Department in a lawsuit for $100. Why $100? All they wanted was the truth to come out regarding the conspiracy to murder Dr. King and the whole case, which was argued by attorney William Peppers. But you can read it on the King Family Center's website that it came out that Dr. King was not assassinated by a lone gunman and James Earl Ray, but it was in fact a conspiracy of the highest levels of this government, FBI, Memphis Police Department, the Dixie Mafia, and elements in Dr. King's inner circle, from Jesse Jackson to Billy Kyles, Abernathy, to some others who betrayed Dr. King and left him on that balcony to be shot. And then when he survived the shooting, they were even told what hospital to get him to. And he survived the shooting only to be smothered in the hospital by a doctor who was a part of the Dixie Mafia in Memphis, Tennessee. Most people have never heard that before. But all you got to do is get William Pepper's book, right? The Act of the State, and then the last one, of course, the conspiracy to murder Dr. King, or the plot to kill Dr. King. And, of course, go to the King Family Center, and you can read the entire case there in terms of the truth. And that's all we want as we started out the show, the truth to come out. Absolutely. Whether Wes Moore is a candidate for governor or Wes Moore is a candidate they think they're going to run for president, that we're not going to stop, and I'm not going to stop. So we didn't start it, but again, going back to the tradition in Baltimore City with the families, when we talk about families, you touch one, you touch all. That's how we was always taught, right? If my brothers got to fight, I got to fight. so you ain't getting away that easy, man. So my sister probably didn't see the bigger picture. My nephew probably didn't see the bigger picture, right? At the time, my brother probably didn't see the bigger picture. But guess what? He had another brother, and all he had to do was come to me. And I said, I see the bigger picture of what they're trying to do, right? And now we've exposed it. So Wes Moore is like that old Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Running Man, man. If you was in the military and you fought Al-Qaeda, you went over there and fought al-Nusra, you done fought the Taliban. Why are you running from Elle White, a little Miss Mackenzie Frost, and all she got is a camera and a microphone? Why are you running from her? If you got truth on your side, right? Why are you running from her?
I see that all frauds run from Mackenzie Frost, and that includes Brandon Scott.
Why are you running from Mackenzie? If you got truth and you've been you 82nd Airborne paratrooper, man, with all them glorious terms they teach you. You running from her. He ran out the back door at Coppin State University. Am I lying, Brother Kenny?
Absolutely. Wow. He ran out the back.
Yeah.
Well,
and didn't want to come to a forum at Morgan. Yeah, didn't want to come to a forum with Dan Cox recently at Morgan, man. So he's the running man. He's on the run. That's all.
He figures that it worked for Brandon Scott, so he figured it worked for him because he's being advised by Martin.
Right. Only 4 times, my brother. Only 4 times.
What's the name of your show that you have?
State of the City.
What's it called again?
The State of the City.
And when is it on?
Every Saturday, WFBR, 1590 AM. We do a podcast during the week on my Facebook page under Daren Mahummad.
All righty. And let me see here. Kenny, you got some contact information or something?
Yeah, well, you always can reach me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm always out there like my brother said, just trying to get the information out there, trying to get the word out there. So
all right.
That's
all
why.
Right. I saw you on Fox 45 recently complaining about you couldn't get into a meeting that the mayor had with the Squeegee Kids.
Right.
Yeah,
I
was
and they
able
call
to
me the
get
radical
in.
one. Hey, Steve, they call me the radical one. Did you see him on Fox 45? They call me the radical one, right?
He was out of control.
I said, man, I must be going soft. He gonna make me have to step my game up a little more. Right?
Call him Killer Kenny. He says that to reporter like, what do you mean? Because you want cameras. We don't want to get street kids out of here.
Let me add just one other point because it kind of brought up a thought in my mind. You remember when the beautiful mother at Southern Baptist Church was murdered inside the church?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Was Evelyn Player? Right. Now let me let you in on a little story because Wes Moore claimed to be a member of Southern Baptist Church. The church had been closed because Hickman got about 3 churches. You know that. They call him Helicopter Hickman, right? Because he fly to Harvard County, he fly to Columbia, and they just use the church.
You know how he got those churches, right? He got those churches by agreeing with Martin O'Malley.
He got like 3 churches. That's a lot of 501c3 or 501 come see me. He ain't even a pastor no more. He the CEO, right? He the CEO.
You know how he got it, right? For agreeing with Martin O'Malley about the same sex.
Yes, absolutely. I remember seeing it because someone had shared the information with me, right? So now Miss Player is murdered. The governor offers up $8,000, and I think it eventually went up to $100,000. Now here's Wes Moore, who they say was the CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation, one of the wealthiest foundations in America, right? And he's a member of Southern Baptist Church. How much money do you think Wes Moore offered up to find out her killers?
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, zero. Okay. Even Hickman didn't offer up no money. But yet they had a vigil, which was supposed to be a vigil outside the church, like a week later, and Dante Hickman was standing on one side, Wes Moore was standing next to Hickman, and the choir was on the other side. They turned it into a Wes Moore rally is what they turned it into. Am I lying?
I love it.
They turned it into a Wes Moore rally. Now let's go to the next scene of the crime. Here's Shiloh Church, Good Friday. Now I'm gonna tell you what I know happened because I talked to some people at Radio 1. See, Larry Young, right, the ex-senator, some call him a sinister, if I can keep it 100, okay? We on Christian radio, and I intend to do so, all right? Okay? So Larry Young has set it up for Wes Moore to come to Shiloh Baptist Church, shake hands and kiss babies and maybe speak for a few minutes on Good Friday, right? Well, unbeknownst to Wes Moore the night before, Larry Young got rushed to the hospital and had to have a leg amputated, right? So Larry Young didn't make Shiloh the next day. So God works in mysterious ways, as they say. You understand? All right? So Wes Moore shows up at Shiloh. Huh?
They're going to try to take God's credit. It ain't about no politicians, it's about God, Christ.
Yeah, it's about God. This is Shiloh Baptist Church Good Friday, the last 7 words of Jesus, not the last 7 words of Wes Moore, not the last 7 words of Larry Young, right? So check this out. So Wes Moore shows up at the church, Mackenzie Frost shows up at the church outside. Mackenzie Frost said, "This is one of the holiest days for Christians on Good Friday." Mackenzie Frost said, "Well, come to find out, there's a lot about you not being from Baltimore." So Wes Moore gets caught. Now, rather than come clean, own it, man up, not can up, he said, "No, I am from Baltimore." She said, "Well, what part of Baltimore did you grow up in?" Now, this is in his own words, and it's still up there. I think it was April the 13th. You can pull it up on Fox 45 website. She said, "Well, what part of Baltimore are you from?" He said, "Well, I grew up in East." He said, "I grew up in West Baltimore." Check this out. Here's the punchline. She said, "Well, what part of West Baltimore did you grow up in?" He said, "Waverly," right? Waverly. And everybody in Baltimore, right? Everybody in Baltimore knows Waverly is East Baltimore. Is that right, my brother?
Oh, Greenmount Avenue, yeah.
Greenmount Avenue.
Yeah.
But this was Wes Moore on Good Friday, given an opportunity. See, he didn't have his handlers around. He's at the church, right out on the grounds, sacred grounds, as they say. You understand?
On the holy day.
And I was waiting to hear a mother of the church say, "Get thee behind me, Satan." You understand what I'm saying? So I was waiting for Aunt Esther type to say, where this old fish-eyed fool come from? Wes Moore, right? To come to the church on Good Friday and lie like this.
Wow.
It didn't happen.
At least the minister of music threw a hymn at him.
Somebody could throw something at him, bro. But it was just it was Mackenzie Frost, and again, just putting the microphone in front of Wes Moore and letting him spin his lie for the people that's awakened. We saw right through it. So his word had no place in us.
Liars seem to be, I hate to say it, elected officials here. I mean, you got Nick Mosby lying and brains out. You got Marilyn Mosby is a chief liar. Brandon Scott is a manufactured. If I hear another word saying it's unacceptable, I'll choke him.
Right.
Because I can't believe it.
No, they say.
Don't you have anything else to say?
Yeah. But not only that, they had an article saying that Wes Moore owed $21,000 water bill that he just paid off. Now take that into consideration with all of these seniors who've been losing homes because they have an outstanding water bill or an outstanding, municipal bill, right? Who've lost homes, but yet the city, even in the newspaper article, they wouldn't list the address that Wes Moore lived at. So you say, who is he? That you've had other elected officials that have had outstanding bills. You listed at least the neighborhood or the address of the home. They went out of their way to give deference to Wes Moore, not to even list this villa or this home that he has in Guilford. But if you play the story straight, how could you accumulate a $21,000 bill? So does he live at the house? Is it a hotel? Does the Jones Falls River or the Jones Falls run under his house? That you got a $21,000 bill?
It's Mar-a-Lago.
It might be hard logo. You understand? But the seriousness is a man who wants to be governor, and he's not responsible for his own finances, like we saw with Nick Mosby and that tax rate, right? And then the seriousness is, did Wes Moore pay that water bill the other day, or did somebody else pay the water bill? Because whoever pays the piper calls the tune. If somebody else pays it, Wes Moore owes them, right?
Well, is he like Johns Hopkins, who don't pay nothing?
Well, yeah, he may be like them, because they might just say, we like to see the receipt, right? So they might just say he paid it to quiet things down in the media right now. So that's the question I'll be asking, where's the receipt that you paid, right? Show me the money. Show me the money. Right. So that's a serious issue to come out a month before the general election, that you got a man that's going to sit over billions of dollars, but he ran a nonprofit. I bet you he made sure all their bills got paid. He ran a nonprofit, as he say, and his wife runs a nonprofit. His wife used to be the chief of staff to Anthony Brown when he was the lieutenant governor.
Lord, no. It's all Martin O'Malley.
Yeah, so that's Martin O'Malley time. Yeah. This is how the industry works. They tell people who they can marry. They have arranged marriage. It's almost like a reality TV show, my brother. You know what I'm saying?
It's like Sun Young Moon.
It's beyond Sun Young Moon. It's like Housewives of Atlanta, Housewives of Potomac. You understand?
Okay. I gotta stop you. gotta stop you. We're going too far. All right.
Right.
So listen, it's been wonderful having you here. It's definitely probably one of the top-rated programs because we've had so much raw, unadulterated truth that I don't think the frauds can handle it. So,
yes, sir.
But this is Elevation Radio 1. This is how we do it. God only wants the truth.
Thank you.
And I hold you to be in the high esteem, sir, as one of my favorite guests, both of you. And
thank you.
I think truth is always welcome here. And
yes,
so,
sir.
Kenny, any closing words, Kenny, as the older brother?
Not at all, man. I enjoyed it, and again, man, we may be out of time, but we definitely not out of word, man. We're going to continue to spread this word, man, and continue to share this information to the people.
All right. Daren, you got anything in closing to say, sir?
Yes, sir. Well, I'm a man of few words, unlike my brother, right? so I want to thank you for taking time out of your regularly scheduled program and information to extend the invitation to myself and my family. And as you talked about at the beginning of the show, of course, ending this Wes Moore controversy or scandal. And as we started off at the top of the show, it was Dr. King that always gave a quote talking about truth crushed to the earth shall rise again, right? Truth forever on the scaffold, yet that scaffold sways the future. And, of course, the Bible says you shall reap what you sow. So we're in a time now. For those who have reaped, they have to sow what they've done. And so I believe that this is our time regarding the truth, and we'll continue to tell the truth. And, again, let the truth invite those, excite those, indict those who have told lies. And they will be eventually held accountable. So I just thank you again for elevating the truth, elevating the information, elevating and raising the vibratory frequency on this show, and allowing myself and my brother to tell, of course, our story, and we will prevail.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to say that I've had a few moments, especially when I was dealing with certain issues and dealing with the loss of my wife, where I had moments, it seems like a weakness, where I broke down on air, and even talking about Jesus Christ and dealing with one of the ministers, and he sung a song, and we just lost it. And somebody said, "Well,
yes, sir.
How can he, as a host, be crying on radio?"
It's all right.
Because it's real.
Jesus wept.
Because we're real.
Men cry.
Yeah, men cry. That's why you got tear ducts.
Yes, sir. I want to commend you because when you talked about your family and the degradation and the disgrace that he tried to put on you,
yes, sir.
You had a moment,
right.
And it's all right to have moments.
Right.
And I applaud you as a real warrior. That's what real warriors do. And we get up and fight.
Thank you.
So,
yes, sir. Promise we
nothing
will.
wrong with that. Yes,
no,
indeed.
Not at all.
I'm hoping that one day, Kenny, check this out, Kenny. I'm hoping one day. I mean, how long have you had your show there, Daren?
This is my 14th year at WFPR now. I've been doing radio for almost 30 years.
Okay, and watch this, Kenny. I actually started at WFPR 1590 AM back in 1997.
97,
and,
okay.
All that time, I've also been on Radio 1 too, 2006, 2008, yes. And all that, and then WBGR 2000.
Yes.
And all that time, Kenny, are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I'm
all
here.
That time, Daren Mahummad has never had me as a guest on any of his programs, but it's okay. It's all right, sir. It's all right. I'll be all right. I'll be all right.
Yes, sir. Well, one of my grandmother's favorite songs, my beautiful black grandmother from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and my brother can testify to this one. One of her favorite songs was by a group by the name of Hot Chocolate. Am I lying, my brother? And it was I believe in miracles. You know what I mean? I believe in miracles, my brother.
I remember that. I'm dating myself. I believe in miracles.
Yes, sir.
Where you from? You? Okay,
right.
Can't say it.
Yeah. absolutely. That was my grandmother.
Okay.
She get up and dance when that song come on because she believed in miracles, my brother. So it took this kind of miracle for us to come together, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll be able to make that happen in the near future.
I will say this, as I'm trying to cut this off, but it's not working, is that I've had another friend of mine we were on the executive board of the Roots of Scouting, and he's Muslim, and they were saying, well, how can a Christian and Muslim work together? I said, well, we're basically a family, but the other thing is that we have a vested interest in the youth of the city. So I have no problem working with anybody that is going to better for the youth, for the women, and for seniors, which was my pet peeve, my favorite. And I remember Catherine Pugh hit me on Facebook and said, why you keep bothering me, Pastor Turner? Why you keep on my case? I said, because you are misappropriating and you're harassing the youth, you're harassing the seniors, the homeless, and the youth. And once you start treating them right, I'll leave you alone.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, but, All right. Well, let me also say, Dr. McKenzie, are you still there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am still here.
All right, sir. Did you get your questions answered?
Say it again?
Did you get your questions answered, sir?
No, not all of them, but there is certainly some definite clarity in the story and behind everything that was talked about here today and everything like that. But I just honestly believe that with everything that has been said today, it's deep, like you've said, like Brother Daren has said, and his brother said as well. And these are the things that we all know, the way that these folks are, or that people are, when it comes to, stories being told, when it comes to the how the I don't want to call it the engine, but the machine. I'll put it that way. The machine that we know exists here in Baltimore. Not just Baltimore. This is bigger than Baltimore. It's actually Maryland. But even within Baltimore. But connecting. My thing is always connecting the dots. And when you can connect the dots and when you can follow where that leads you to. Brother Daren, I think you did say that. If you follow the train where that leads you, and that can that can give you some of the answers. I will ask you, both of you and your brother, this. How was in real quick, because I know we got to go and I know we're over time. But how was the connection between Wes Moore, the candidate for governor? How did he pull this your nephew name? How did he make that original connection? If I can ask, I mean, I know you said I think his mother asked him about being on TV or his name being out there or whatever and everything like that. How did he go from that to writing this book in the total contrast? I'm just curious to find how that was made, if you were able to even answer that.
Well, I think what's going to happen is we're going to have to eventually bring this to court and put Wes Moore under some type of deposition along with his mother, because it was Wes Moore who said his mother called him and said there was an all-points bulletin out for him. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Why would the boy lie on his mother like that? I mean, he don't make his mother available to Fox 45 for Mackenzie Frost to talk to. And then it was Wes Moore who said that he was asking for an investigation to find out who leaked the story. See, rather than own up to it and say, I lied. See, it's almost like once you got exposed, the empress naked. He said, oh, I'm naked. Let me put some clean clothes on. He want to know who told that I wasn't born in Baltimore. Right? He didn't want to own up to it.
Right.
So that's the question that you have to put him under oath and his mother to find out, again, this who concocted the story and then who put him up to going to visit my nephew in prison. Because usually go to prison, you can only come in if you're a family member or if you have a ministry of some sort. right? That you are catering to those who are behind bars. So how did he obtain access? He don't say that in the book. He just say I wrote letters to him. Well, again, who took the letters to my nephew, and then who gave the okay? Who was the warden? See, you may have to find, again, these interlocking relationships. Who was the warden that gave the okay that Wes Moore could come in and out of prison, especially since my nephew was such a high-profile prisoner, that he could come in and out of the prison to see my nephew when his mama couldn't do it, when his girlfriend couldn't do it. But this boy, Wes Moore, Omari Moore, or Watandi Moore, whatever his real name is, was able to have access to my nephew, you know?
Right, and so to have the same name. To have the same name, to be going in and out of the prison to meet with a person with a high-profile case. You know, how did that happen? You know, are you senior? Is that your son? I mean, you know, what is it? How can you get in and out of the prison like that without them? You know, so is you using another name other than Wes Moore to get in there? You using your government name to meet with Wes Moore?
And the other point I wanted to add, if his father was a Wes Moore senior, then why didn't you write a book about your father? Why did you choose my nephew? If your father, who he said his father name was Wes Moore, right? Why did you use your father? See, this is almost like the Henrietta Lacks book, that they thought that my family was just some ignorant, I know this is a Christian show, some ignorant mofos, right? Some ignorant mofos and ofos out of West Baltimore that they could just come in and exploit like this, and there would never, ever be no accountability. This is what they really thought, like the Lacks family. And we just passed her death October 4th, 1951, where Hopkins made billions of dollars off her cells, right, with the healer cells. Likewise, they used this book to make millions of dollars off of a tragedy which involved two of my family members and my two blood nephews. So this is what happened. But you have to get them to court and put them under oath to find out. Because if Wes Moore is not a writer, I don't think he really wrote the book. He's not that smart when you listen to him. So somebody else had to concoct. He's not that smart. So somebody else had to concoct this story and this narrative. You know,
a ghostwriter.
So I don't know if was it when we know one of his mentors. That's why he live in Guilford is Professor Larry Gibson. The Larry Gibson thing, he's the go-through and go-to man when it comes to black history and black, you know, and black icons in Maryland. That's just Larry Gibson. Now, I don't trust him, but that's what Larry Gibson have always done throughout the years, right? So that's the question. When you see all these campaign signs, vote Wes Moore, vote Democrat, stop Fox News, attack on Baltimore, that's Larry Gibson running his campaign. I'm telling you what I know. That's Larry Gibson running that campaign, okay? And so if Larry Gibson had to be bought in, and before he kicked the bucket, somebody gonna be held accountable so we can get to the bottom of concocted this entire idea from the bottom to the top in terms of the book, from the crook to the nook and everybody else that touched that book. That's gonna eventually have to be bought up.
I think we got an exclusive here, so. Yeah, I guess the keyword is indict. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, because as I wrap up, let's be clear. My sister, Wes Moore, the fraud, synthetic fraud, he talked to my sister Mary, and he talked to my sister Denise, Kathy Denise Williams, who we call Denise, who we call Niecy, right? So I talked to my sister Niecy. She said she talked to him 2 times for 20 minutes. I talked to my sister Mary. She didn't tell me how many times she spoke to him. They never signed no release papers for him to put any information in a book about my family. My sisters are not the executives over any will that my mother had or any will that my father had. So he couldn't say, because he talked to my 2 sisters and my nephew, that he could put anything in that book regarding my family, regarding my mother's death, regarding my father. You understand? And what he did was essentially leave my father and mother and nephew stuck in a state of arrested development. Their story ended right there. He didn't bother to say my father was one of the first blacks to work at Channel 2, right? He talked about his father working in television, but he didn't talk about my father. So you just thought my father was just an old drunk like Grady or some damn character off Sanford and Son. Pardon my language. This is the image he gave of my father. and then the image of my mother was just some poor, ignorant black woman that shouldn't have had children, is what he's basically was saying in that book. So that's part of why he will be held accountable. And as I said, if I have to bring my sisters and put them under oath too. Nobody's getting away with this one. I mean, nobody.
Well, I appreciate that. I will tell you who you're talking to. You're talking to a publisher.
Yes.
Go and tell them who you are, Dr. McKenzie.
Well, I mean, in terms of when you're writing a book like that, he would. I mean, I would think that he would need. He wouldn't necessarily. I don't know if he would necessarily need permission from your mother. From as long as he had permission from your nephew Wes Moore, who the story was about, and he's telling him his story. Now, that's going to be predicated on what he talked to him about. That's to put that out there. And if he gave permission to be able to do that, you get it. And that's where the going to court would have to figure all of that out. And because it can be very tricky, especially when you're talking about family and you're talking about others that are impacted within that. So I won't touch it because I don't know what what information he was given. And then, like you said, he talked to your sisters, and even I don't know if they talked to you about what he asked them. That time frame. That's a very small time period to gather a lot of information like that he's putting in a book. So all of those things kind of had to come out in the wash, or even if you talk to your nephew to find out what Wes Moore said to him when he visited him, and even I don't even know if he knows how he got in to see him.
Right. Well, we be clear. In one of the segments of the book, in almost the very beginning, my nephew was given information about himself to Wes Moore. Then my nephew at a certain point said, "That's enough about me. Now tell me something about you." The book abruptly, the paragraph ends right there. That should have been a red flag, a black flag, a red, black, and green flag. It should have been a rainbow flag for my nephew, that this boy is not authentic. So that's why I said my nephew, he ain't the brightest bulb in the room. He ain't the sharpest knife in the drawer. You understand? That would have been enough for me to understand that this boy don't have a history of growing up in Baltimore. He couldn't tell my nephew one thing about Baltimore. That's the sad part. But yet he went on the McNeil Lehrer show, Oprah Winfrey show. Man, there's a videotape up on YouTube where he was talking to the white woman. I can't recall her name. He had her meet him at the Alameda and Kennedy Avenue because that's where my sister had lived at one point, right? And he was walking in the rain slowly up and down the Alameda. If I was out there doing an interview, if you was doing an interview, people be driving by that knew you, be talking about, "What's up, Steve? That's my man. What's up, brother Sam? That's my man. Man, you back on the block." Man, ain't nobody blow a horn at him when he was out there. You understand what I'm saying? They thought he was part of the news crew. This boy telling the lady, "Yeah, these are the blocks we used to run on." You know what I mean? This is what he was doing. So he knew the truth, but still went forward with telling this lie, is what I'm saying, is what he did. So all that physical evidence that's out there in the public, that he would continue to do such a thing, to self-promote himself, that ultimately that this was the end game, was to bring him to Maryland and say, we're going to now, reward him by giving him this governor's seat in Maryland. And if they can do that, they would like to make him the second coming of Barack Obama and try to sell him as the third coming of Dr. King. He's not that eloquent. He's not that elegant. Let's be clear about that, okay? And he don't have, I'm going to say this, he don't have the testicular fortitude and what it takes. He's already showed that by running from Mackenzie Frost. You ain't never seen Dr. King run from a reporter. You ain't never seen Barack Obama, like him or not, right? You ain't never seen Obama run from a reporter, right? This boy running from a reporter.
I've never seen Dr. McKenzie
run
from a
but he can't hide.
I've never seen Dr. McKenzie run from a report either.
Oh,
all right.
We from Baltimore, and those of us all the time, every day,
But those of us from Baltimore, we don't run. Look, those of us in Baltimore, we don't run from reporters. We run up on the reporters. You understand what I'm saying? We run up. We from a part of the society where we don't let nobody ride up on us, slide up on us, glide up on us. We run up on them, man. I know you ain't from Baltimore when you run from a reporter.
But
Dr. McKenzie does that.
Matter of fact, they see us coming. They start moving kind of fast.
Exactly. Only other person that didn't run from a reporter was Jack Young running from Jay Miller. I said, man, please check in for some thongs. Please check in for thongs running from Jay Miller. I said, don't tell nobody you from East Side running from Jay Miller, man. Don't tell nobody you went from Dunbar. You clearly ain't go to Dunbar running from Jay Miller. And I know brothers in Bar where we run up on a Jay Miller. Said, what you say? Let's cut to the chase. He ran from Jay Miller, man. So you lost all street cred. I mean, please revoke his black card running from Jay Miller, man.
They say Jay Miller was more man than he was.
Yeah, and she was more man than he was, man. Running from Jay Miller. He made brothers look bad, man.
Kenny. Yes, Kenny. Daren's got me in trouble again. So let me end the show. So I'll make sure that I give you copies and all the powers that be. And thank you, gentlemen, for elevating the truth. And this is a good thing that we know now black people, black men, harbingers of the truth. And there's still some that don't mind doing it. Okay.
That's right.
So if you don't like it, then that's not our problem. That's your problem.
That's right.
And can I say that one last thing real quick, Pastor?
Yeah, go ahead.
The truth can always, the truth can always stand on its own. It doesn't need anything to hold it up. It can always stand on its own because it's the truth. It can be backed. Right. It has backing. It has everything else. It can always stand, and it will always. The truth can always or will always come forward because it can stand on its own. When all of the smoke and everything else clears, there will always stand the truth. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes, truth don't need no credit.
No, not at all. But it kind of reminds me as we close. If you remember that joke about the lie and the truth and how the lie and truth went swimming, and they were in town, and the truth took the lie told truth, you get in first, and truth took off his clothes and got in the water. But what happened when truth took off his clothes and got in the water? The lie, who was standing on the bank, took his clothes off and put on clothes, truth, and ran back to the town, right? And the people in town thought and took the lie as the truth, and the truth realized what the lie had done, and the truth got out the water, looked down at lie clothes, and refused to put lie clothes on. So truth ran back to the town, and the people thought that the lie was the truth, but a little old man who had that eye open. He said, nah, he might look like truth, but that's not the truth. People say, what do you mean? He said, look, here comes the butt-naked truth running toward us right now, and that's what we're doing, my brother. Right now, the butt-naked truth, okay?
I gotta get y'all out of here. Y'all get me in trouble. All right. So thank you. God bless you. This has been a highly esteemed program. It'll be going everywhere, and hopefully it'll run up on the fake Wes Moore.
It's out in the universe. It's out there now. It's out in the universe.
Yeah.
Can't take it back.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can't take it back.
So thank you. God bless you, my brothers.
I'll send it to McKenzie.
God bless.
All right. God bless you.
God bless.
Thank you. Anytime you need to reach out.
It's a new thing that's whipping the land when you don't know which way to go. The answer is Jesus and Elevation Radio.